Your objective for lesson 23 is I will solve a variety of word problems with perimeter. In this lesson, we're going to go straight to the problem set because everything that we do on the problem set, you don't really need a concept development with. You're just solving a lot of problems with perimeter, and we've worked a lot with perimeter now that you know what perimeter is, and you'll be able to solve problems with it. So you'll need to have out your problem set for this. So if you need to push pause and get that ready, you can do that now. Okay, so the first question says, Gail makes a miniature stop sign. And I know that you've seen stop signs whenever you're driving down the street. A stop sign is an octagon. And if you remember what I told you, we know that an octagon, I want you to think of octopus. So we know that it's going to have 8 sides, and we know that all of the sides are going to be the same length. And then it says that it has a perimeter of 48 centimeters for the town he built with blocks. So this is like him playing with blocks and building a town, and he's got a stop sign. So it says, what is the length of each side of the stop sign? So what we're going to have to do here is we're going to have to make an octagon that looks like that. So I know sometimes octagons are hard to draw, but you've got to make your straight side and then 2 slanted sides, and then another straight side on the side, and then slanted again, and then straight side on the bottom. So I'm going to let you get your octagon drawn, and then you can push play when you're ready to move on. Okay, so if we know that the perimeter is 48 centimeters, and we know that it has 8 equal sides, then this is just like a division problem. We're going to say 48, and this is the same thing as a division sign, divided by 8, and that's going to tell us what the length of each side is going to be. So I want you to figure out what 48 divided by 8 is on your paper. If you want to draw a picture with your groups, or if you already know what you can multiply 8 with and get 48, then you can put that as your answer. But I want you to figure out what 48 divided by 8 is, and then I want you to push play whenever you have that answer. So I know that 48 divided by 8 is 6, because I know that 8 times 6 gives me 48. So whenever I am answering this question for what is the length of each side of the stop sign, I'm going to put that in a complete sentence. The length of each side of the stop sign is 6 centimeters. And now we're ready to move on to number 2. Travis bends wire to make rectangles. Notice that it has an S. So it says each rectangle measures 34 inches by 12 inches. What is the total length of the wire needed for 2 rectangles? So the first thing that we need to do is draw 2 rectangles. And then we know the side lengths are 34 inches by 12 inches, so we're going to put 34 inches on one side length and 12 inches on the other side length. I'm going to make my font smaller. And we're going to do that on both of the rectangles. And then we're going to have to answer the question where it says what is the total length of wire needed for 2 rectangles. And so in order to know how much wire he's going to need to make these rectangles, we're going to have to figure out how much wire would fit around all of the sides. And we know that we're finding, or we know that when we're working with the perimeter of a shape, it goes around the shape. So we have to find the perimeter of both of these rectangles and add those together in order to find out how much wire that they're going to need. So what we need to do is find the perimeter of one rectangle, and then we know that will be the perimeter of the other rectangle since these are the same rectangles, and then we'll just have to add those 2 perimeters together to figure out how much wire is going to be needed. So to find the perimeter, we would have to do 34 plus 12 plus 34 plus 12, and that's going to give us what our perimeter is. So I want you to go ahead and add those 4 numbers together. If you need to write them up and down, you can. So once you have those added together, I want you to push play. So the perimeter of one rectangle is 92 centimeters. So to find the how much wire is needed for both rectangles, we'll have to do 92 plus 92, and that will tell us what the perimeter is for both rectangles together. I know that 2 plus 2 is 4, and then I know that 9 plus 9 is 18, so that's going to tell me that we're going to need 184 centimeters of wire for him to be able to make both rectangles. So we're going to answer it in a sentence. It says the total length of wire needed for 2 rectangles is 184 centimeters. That was a 2-step problem right there, and now we're ready to move on to number 3. Number 3 says the perimeter of a rectangular bathroom floor is 32 feet. So they're giving us the perimeter. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my rectangle. I want you to do the same thing, and I want you to put in the middle of it that the perimeter is 32 feet. It says the width of the room is 8 feet, and the length of the room, move that. The length of the room is, it's actually asking what is the length of the room. So we know that one side length is going to be 8 feet, but we do not know what this side length is going to be, so we're going to put a question mark right there. And we learned from previous lessons that in order to find a missing side length, whenever we have one side length and then we have the perimeter, is we just have to add the other side lengths together and subtract that from the perimeter to see what the other missing side lengths will be. So if we know that this side length right here is 8, then we know that this side length is also 8. So whenever we add 8 and 8 together, that would give us 16. So we can say 32 minus 16. And whatever that leaves us with, we're going to have to divide in 2 because we have 2 different side lengths that we're going to have to put here to figure out what the length of the rectangle is going to be. So whenever you take 32 minus 16, you should be left with 16. So whenever we take 16 and we divide it by 2, we know that when we multiply 2 by 8, we get 16. So 16 divided by 2 is 8. So that leaves us with this question mark right here. The question mark would be 8. And that also tells us that we probably drew our rectangle wrong, because if this side was 8, then this side does not look like it's 8. So we would probably have to fix the way our rectangle looked to make it look more where the sides are equal in length and not different. So now I've fixed it to where it kind of looks a little bit better where each side could be 8. So now we know that the length of the room, and I'm going to put that on here, the length of the room is 8 feet. And you don't have to write this down, but whenever you look at this, if every side is 8 feet, that's the same thing as saying 8 times 4. And I know that 8 times 4 is 32, so that definitely tells us that our answer is right, that the length of the room is 8 feet. Now we're moving on to number 4. It says Ray J uses 6-inch square tiles to make a rectangle as shown below. What is the perimeter of the rectangle in inches? Okay, now I want you to notice that you're not just going to go through here and you're not just going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. You're not just going to count each line by ones, because from here to here is 6 inches. So what this is really saying is that this right here is also 6. This right here is also 6. So every little line that you see that we would have to be counting around to find the perimeter is 6. So what you're going to do, and you're just going to do it like I'm doing, you're going to put 6 on each one of these lines right here to show that we're not going to be counting by ones, but we're going to be counting by 6s. And I'm actually not going to make you count by 6s. The best way to do this is to count 10 6s, because you know that 10 times 6 is 60. So we're going to count 10 6s, and then we'll go from there. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if we stop right here, I know that so far I've got 60. And then we're going to count on from there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I know that 6 6s give me 36, because 6 times 6 is 36. So now I can say that I have 60 plus 36. And whenever I add 60 plus 36 together, that would give me the perimeter of this rectangle. So I want you to add those together and then answer this in a complete sentence. And whenever you have that done, you may push play to check your answer. So the perimeter of that rectangle is 96 inches. And now we're ready to move on to number 5. It says that Misha makes a 4-foot by 6-foot rectangular banner. She puts ribbon around the outside edges. The ribbon costs $2 per foot. What is the total cost of the ribbon? So we need to draw the picture of our rectangle and label the side links from what they told us. Okay, so one side's going to be 4 feet and the other side's going to be 6 feet. Now we need to find the perimeter of this rectangle so we know how much ribbon will have to go around the edges. So we're going to use our equation of 6 plus 4 plus 6 plus 4. And we know that 6 and 4 together is 10. So it's the same thing as saying 10 plus 10. So that's going to be 20 feet is what our perimeter is. But that doesn't answer the question because it says what is the total cost of the ribbon. It doesn't ask what the perimeter of the rectangle is. So it says the ribbon costs $2 per foot. So if we've got 20 feet and we're needing to know how much the ribbon is going to cost, then that's the same thing as saying that I have 20 times 2, because if I have 20, you're saying each foot costs $2. So it's like you're saying 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 20 times, and we know that that's the same thing as saying 20 times 2. So we know that 20 and 20 together would give us 40. So we know that the total cost of the ribbon is going to be $40. So we're going to put that in a sentence. So your sentence will say the total cost of the ribbon is $40. And now we're ready to move on to the last problem. It says Colton buys a roll of wire fencing that is 120 yards long. He uses it to fence in his 18-yard by 24-yard rectangular garden. Will Colton have enough wire fencing left over to fence in a 16-yard or 6-yard by 8-yard rectangular play space for his pet rabbit? Okay, so this is going to take quite a few steps. First thing we need to draw is his rectangular garden. That's 18 yards by 24 yards. So we're going to label one side 18 yards and the other side is going to be labeled 24 yards. So the first thing that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to figure out the perimeter of this garden so we know how much fence he's going to have to put around the garden if we know that he has 120 yards so far of wire for his fencing. So I'm just going to put inside here 24 plus 18 plus 24 plus 18, and you're going to do the same thing. And then I want you to push pause and add those 4 numbers together to figure out the perimeter of this garden so we can move on to see if he has enough fencing left over for his play space for his rabbit. So add those 4 numbers up together to find the perimeter and push play whenever you're ready. So when you add those 4 numbers together, you get 84. So the perimeter of the rectangular garden is 84 yards. So if he has 124 yards of wire fencing and he's going to use 84 yards of that wire fencing for his garden, then we need to figure out how much wire fencing is he going to have left over, and is that going to be enough for his play space for his rabbit. So we need to now do another equation of 120 minus 84. So I want you to solve that on your paper and push play when you're ready to check that. Okay, so when you did 120 minus 84, you're left with 36. So far he's got 36 yards left of fencing. So the rectangular play space for his rabbit would have to be 6 by 8. So we're going to draw another rectangle, and it's going to be 6 by 8. We're going to put 6 yards on one side, and we're going to put 8 yards on the other side. And now we have to find the perimeter of this to see if he will have enough. Not the area, but the perimeter. So we're not going to do 6 times 8. We're going to add these up together. So inside of it, I want you to do what I'm doing. 8 plus 6 plus 8 plus 6. And we're going to add these together to find out what the perimeter of this play space would be. So I want you to add those 4 numbers together and then push play whenever you're ready to check your answer. So when you added 8 plus 6 plus 8 plus 6, you should have gotten 28. So when we go back to our subtraction problem there, we see that he had 36 yards left of fencing after he did his garden. And if this rectangular play space for his rabbit is only going to have a perimeter of 28, then that does tell us that he is going to have enough fencing left over for his rectangular play space. And I do want you to notice that it doesn't say explain your answer, it just says will he have enough. But after everything that we drew here and all the equations that we have written down, this really shows our work and shows how we know that he will have enough wire fencing left over. So now we just need to answer the question in a sentence and say, yes, he will have enough wire fencing left over. So that one had quite a few steps. You just had to look at it really closely to make sure you were doing everything correctly. And it's really hard to not get it confused with area, so just make sure you're not multiplying the side lengths instead of adding them all together. So now you're ready for the exit ticket. This one you need to look at closely because you got lots of different sides to these rectangles that you're going to have to add together, and they're only giving you the perimeter, which is 72. So this is kind of just like that one that we did at the beginning of the problem set with the octagon. So if you need to go back and look at that to help you with this exit ticket, you might need to do that. So once you have this done, you may bring it to me.